Everything I've observed is that being intentional is such a good thing. If a man could definitely work on himself and be the best man, godly man that he could be, I think it will just make everything so much better.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Live Music Podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Mark G, and today we have Abigail. How are we doing?
I'm well, thank you. I'm really glad to be here. We finally arranged it, so yeah.
Yeah, I think the first time we met in person, I've always known your music and always been a fan, but I think the first time we met, I believe was Neo Soul Lounge, wasn't it?
Yeah, we met at the event, which was really good.
South London, which is away from where I am at the moment, but it was a really good event and it was really great to participate and to be involved. Great what NK is doing. But yeah, we're going to get straight into your music. But the name Abigail sounds like Abigail. I'm wondering, firstly, is that a name you composed or that's your original name? Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, so it's a lot of people get confused. It's my stage name, so it's a combination of my first name and my last name. So I just go by that.
Cool, Abigail, which is a really cool name. I'm guessing that Ade got a nice kind of West African feel to it, I feel.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, yeah. Nice. So, before we get into your music, perhaps just let us, obviously, we're all this is all about making music to glorify the Lord Jesus. And obviously, before we become his servants, we actually grafted into the kingdom to become the children of God. And so maybe we could hear about your testimony, about how you came to know the Lord.
Yeah. I think I had quite a, fortunate upbringing in that I was born into a Christian family, Christian parents who dragged me to church from the age of 0, pretty much. And so, I had that foundation, but again, you get to a point where you have to choose it for yourself. And I think quite early on, I made the decision to follow Jesus probably before I was 13. And then I got baptized quite early as well in my teenage years. But then again, when I went to university, I think that's when I fully started to stand on my own 2 feet as a Christian. Because I guess at university, you can choose to either go with the world and party and all of that, or choose Christ. And I think it was a big turning point for me in my relationship with Christ. And that's where I started leading worship, was just before I went to university, and it just kind of took off from university. So I thank God for saving me early, because it saved me from a lot of things. And I know a lot of people don't have that story. So
yeah. It's a wonderful story. Obviously, praise God for those who are saved. Quite a lot of dramatic and traumatic effects, but obviously equally beautiful is to hear that there are people who are committing to raise the children in the Lord, and the children, by God's grace, kind of carry on that path. Before I get into the next topic, would I say a great contribution to you deciding to take the faith by yourself is maybe the positive influence by your parents and those around you? Would you say that was a contributor to you deciding to walk with the Lord by yourself, for yourself?
Yeah, for sure. I think my parents have been such a foundation for me, seeing their faith and seeing them live it out, not just speak it, but actually, attending the church services, praying and singing and worshiping in the house has been a foundation that I've been able to copy into my teenage years and adulthood as well. So, and also godly friends. I've had, older sisters, people who are aunties and stuff, who have just basically helped me to live a life that looks like we should as Christians. And so I'm really grateful for my community, for sure.
And would you say then that, what was parenting like by your experience? Were you because obviously you're based in South London, was it that you were sheltered from everything, or was it that they kind of gave you wisdom to navigate it? Because even though we're not of the world as Christians, we are in the world as well. So how was it you being a Christian and navigating life from what you're being taught at home, but plus also what you're saying when you're going to school and college or whatever? How do you navigate that in such an environment as from where you are, where you're from?
No, that's a good question. It's not been easy, for sure. I think, as you say, I think they gave me the wisdom to know right and wrong. And they kind of use the Bible to help me to know that. But at the same time, children are children, right? You have temptations, there's peer pressure and all of that stuff. And so, obviously I've made mistakes in the past, but I think knowing that, on Sundays, I would have, that community, having my parents, having my siblings and stuff like that has really helped me to, even when I go off the path, to come back. Like I would always come back onto it. And I think, my parents were definitely consistent with knowing that this is the way of God, this is the right path. And I made it easier for me every time where there was distractions. It made it easier.
So let's pivot to how you go into music. I suppose you being in a church environment, it was very easy and accessible for you to kind of pick it up, right?
I would say yes. I think from primary school, I was in choirs, like gospel choirs. And so that helped me. And I started learning the guitar when I was 10, I think.
By yourself?
No. So my parents put me into music school.
Okay.
So then that's where I started to learn the guitar classically. But at the same time, I was really shy. So it actually has been a bit of a struggle at times to navigate, getting into worship and music. But it had helped to be, in a church where they're singing and things like that. I knew that it was something that I enjoyed. But it's a whole other story when it comes to me actually getting into it myself.
And let's get into that, because obviously it's one thing to learn the instruments and participate, in church, which is a good thing. But then you kind of took that other step of actually, we feel like this was a calling for you to kind of create what I believe from what I see, worship music. So tell me how that happened, where you felt like, what, I feel like this is something that I can do beyond a Sunday morning. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think it's the story I look back on. I'm just like, wow, God, this is only you. Because as I said, I was really shy. I was singing choirs, and that was easier for me because you're hidden. It's not just your voice, right? It's like there's so many other people. I think maybe when I was 16-ish, I was singing at church in a kind of a girl group with some of my friends. And again, you're kind of hidden because there's other people. I remember there was a particular time that was a game changer for me where I was super shy, but they had asked someone to lead a particular song, which was Break Every Chain at church. And I was maybe 16, 17.
That's a very big song.
That song, honestly, I love it. And then in my head, I was like trembling, like, oh my gosh, I love this song. I want this to be me. But I was also really nervous. And then I had volunteered to do it. And again, I was trembling. And even people were just like, wow, are you sure? Like, this is a big song. Are you sure you're able to do it? So anyway, I ended up singing it, and I just felt like kind of the nudge from God. I ended up leading it, and that was the first time most of my church family had heard me sing individually. And they were just like, wow, I can't believe this has been in you all this time. And they were just super shocked. And I feel like that was almost like that moment when Jesus was baptized and then he came out and all heaven opened. I feel like it was that sort of moment for me. And so after that, I kind of started, leading worship at church. And when I went to university in particular, I was the worship leader for a Christian society or chosen at uni. And that was a game changer. That was when I was like, okay, cool. I need to take this seriously. I'm now, leading a bunch of people, leading the choir. We have different administrations. And then in terms of my own music, again, fast forward a few years, I started writing music a little bit at uni, but I started with poetry, so spoken word. And I was like, oh, this isn't actually that hard for me. And then I tried to transition, and for a long time, I actually couldn't transition. And I was like, oh, but I can write poetry, but I can't write songs. What's going on? And I think there was a period in my life where things were just going wrong. And I just remember being in my bed one day, and it's like, let me try and write a song. And the lyrics just started flowing. And that's how Live For You was born, my first single. So I think since then I was like, wow, I can actually write music, and it doesn't come that hard for me. And I know that it's a gift from God. Like, I know it's not my own strength because I couldn't do it before. Just over the years, God has just given me more and more confidence to, step up and be an example to even the generation coming after me and just the people in my life. And so that's why I use my music, and it's almost my fuel at the moment to, keep going and blessing people. And something I really believe is that, my talents aren't for me. Like, my gifts are given to me to bless other people. And so that's been the trajectory of my life. And I guess that's where we are now.
A lot to pick up there. And I think where I want to start is it's strange, but then it's not so strange. That sometimes, and I believe it's your experience, where you feel God's calling you to is the exact opposite. Here's what I mean. There are those who think naturally, because I'm shy, God will put me somewhere behind the scenes, but actually push me in front, and vice versa. Those who feel they're supposed to be on the front, they're put on the back. And I guess what I'm learning in my experience from observing other people is that maybe God puts you in places where you can, dare I say, struggle so that you can rely on Him, right? And I've heard a lot of artists say, real talk, I'm actually a very shy introvert. I don't like being on stage. I'm just there because this is where I feel God's calling me to. Would I say that would be your case? Like, actually, God kind of does, He can put you in places which are maybe counterintuitive to what you feel your makeup is as a person.
Oh, yeah. I think you said that so well. I think God does that so much. He takes almost the things that the Bible talks about. He takes the foolish things of the world and uses it almost to confound the wise. And I think that's been my story, where he knows that I didn't want to be in the front stage. I didn't want the platforms. I didn't want to be out there. But I think it's definitely forced me to rely on God and to depend on Him, and to also recognize that, okay, well, this is clearly not in my strength, and this is clearly not my own doing. And so it does help me to be more submitted and even more humble in a way. So God knows what He's doing for sure, but He still uses the extroverts too. But I think it's just maybe a bit more easy to shape someone who doesn't want to be in a specific space, I guess. But yeah, I think I've definitely grown in confidence now, and I'm definitely not the shy person I was before. I've definitely grown. But yeah, I remember my story, and it definitely reminds me to thank God for all of it.
I want to pick up on something else as well before I move on, but another scripture that comes to mind, written by Paul as well, is, my grace is made perfect in weakness. So sometimes God puts us in a place where we fully need to depend on Him so that the power of Christ might be manifest. And I'm just glad to see that you see that in your experience. Now, you also said that you talked about university, and obviously your story, I'm afraid, is not the same with others who, after maybe being in a house setting where they're learning the faith, they decide to walk away when they go to uni. What would you say were the contributing factors to you staying the course rather than being swayed by going to the world? What would you say would be your case? And what would be advice to anyone listening who's going to uni and they want to keep their faith? What would be some of the pieces of advice you would give the person listening?
Yeah, really good questions. I think for me, and what I would recommend everyone, is having Christian community is the game changer. I think if I had been isolated, or if I had maybe the majority of my community were non-Christians, not to say that that's bad, but I think for me, that would have just swayed me a lot more, because they're probably more likely to do things of the world, or, having the Christian friends means I'm, going to church with them. I'm having Bible studies with them. Midweek, I'm going to different things with them. And so that really helped to keep me in check. Even if you're struggling with something, when you have a strong Christian community, you're almost struggling together, and you can kind of push through and almost hold up each other's arms. And so, yeah, I think my biggest thing is make sure that you have Christian community, but also make sure you know your own why. Because I think it's really easy when you grow up as a Christian. You can rely on your parents' faith. But for me, I really had to just make a decision, like, do I want to actually follow this for me, or is it for my parents or for my pastor or whatever? And so, yeah, I think just deciding amongst myself that, wow, God has done this for me and I can see this with my own eyes, I think that helped me to almost have that my own conviction that I will follow Jesus because He's been real to me, not just my parents or this person or this friend, it's to me. So yeah, the two things I would definitely recommend is, like, have community, and just know your why for being a Christian. Like, have your own convictions and your own reasons for following Jesus.
And so you say that you're an introvert, and let's be honest, even in the Christian music scene and as a secular scene, people can kind of be swayed by numbers, trying to get as many numbers and a big as fan base as possible. Would you say because of your personal makeup, as we just addressed, that perhaps you're not really so consumed by that? Or would you say that sometimes you feel, I wish I had a few more streams here and there? I mean, how, because obviously, even in spaces where you're in the limelight, I imagine that, yes, on one hand, you're serving God and serving others, but you have to be careful not to be to think that it's about you, because you're just a vessel. So how do you kind of navigate all that in your psyche as a Christian artist?
Yeah, no, it's hard. I won't lie to you. It can be hard because on one hand, yes, you're serving God, but at the same time, you want to reach people, and that requires numbers in a way. So it's something I still navigate with. I think my makeup, so I would probably describe myself as an ambivert at this point. Like, I don't mind. I like socializing and whatever. So thank God for that change. But yeah, you think about it, right? You're posting, maybe you're releasing a song and you want it to reach a certain amount of people. You know, you're thinking about impact, which can equate to numbers at times. But at the same time, I think something I try to do is just remind myself, if I'm impacting one person and one life has changed, then that is a job well done, right? And so I think kind of remembering that we have an audience of one helps to shape me and ground me when maybe the numbers aren't as high, or you feel like something is not impacting or reaching the amount of people that you relate to it. And so, yeah, no, it's hard. I think it's hard for every artist, no matter what your makeup is. But I think you just have to continue to be consistent, continue to be diligent, because at the end of the day, what I try to do is just think, what is success to me? And success to me is kind of being obedient to God, being obedient to the calling, being diligent with what he's given me and the gifts, and just blessing people on the way. And so, yeah, it's hard, but God will help us. We just have to trust God and trust that he's making us as effective as we can be.
And one song, I think your song, one of your most streamed songs, encapsulates what you believe success to be, and that's Live For You, which I believe, as according to streaming platforms, is the most streamed song from yourself. Tell us the backstory of that song, because that song is doing very well. I can see it in the video for the song, the lyric video, and the performances video. It's a lot of people have been ministered, and it seemed well received. Give us a backstory of that, and maybe link it to, what you describe as success as a worship leader as well.
Yeah. Thank you. So Live For You, rightly so, I wrote it basically at university, more or less. I finished it after university, but it was just a thing of where I had to come to the decision of myself of, am I going to follow the world, or am I going to live for Jesus, essentially? Am I going to use my gifts for the world? Am I going to use it for Jesus? And so, so it goes like, no matter what it looks like, I'll worship you. No matter what it feels like, I'll worship you. No matter what it sounds like, I'll worship you. And that was kind of me just almost like a prayer to God to say, like, you know what, even if it's not perfect, even if I struggle along the way, even no matter what it looks like, I'm still going to put myself out there. I'm going to worship you. I'm going to use my gifts and talents for you. And yeah, I think the chorus talks about, you died for me, now I'll live for you. You died for me, now I'll walk in truth. You're worthy. And I think that you're worthy, Lord, is a summary of everything. It's like, no matter what I'm doing, God, you are worthy of all of this. You are worthy of my time and my talents and my treasure. And so that goes back to, success, right? What is it? It's making sure that I'm living for you. You are good. So that's kind of the story behind the song. I had to write it in parts, but thank God it came together, and it's blessed a lot of people, and it continues to bless me as well, and reminds me of my why.
And I think that's the means by which I believe you can recognize who's truly a disciple, because anyone can understand that Christ, the Lord Jesus, came to die to be a sacrifice for our sins. But the Romans 12 says that in response to the mercy, that we should offer ourselves as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. And that must be Paul was saying that is the next eventual step, considering how much merciful he is. It's not just to simply marvel, but now that God has given all of him to us, we in turn should give all ourselves to him. So it's like that love relationship where he has demonstrated his manifold grace. And now in turn, we just say, okay, it's not about me. It's all about you, Lord. And I feel like it's very, I mean, maybe let's talk about this a little bit more. Sometimes it's hard even for myself included, to kind of take that step, that we kind of stop at, yeah, Jesus died for me, woohoo, I'm free. And it's like we forget, no, we are not our own, like the Bible says. We've been bought at a price, right? Yeah. We are now servants of Christ. It's now he calls the shots. And I think what is unfortunate is that maybe sometimes we do not flourish in life because we do not take that extra step. Like, okay, now Christ has died for me. Now, Lord, what shall I do? Yeah. And why is it that some people are kind of like in this intermediate period where they appreciate the cross, they appreciate all that is done, but they realize, okay, now you're not your own. Now Christ is Lord of your life. So, because obviously you, from the songs, it kind of shows that you've come to a point where you realize Christ is Lord of my life. What he says goes. Why is this not the language we most often hear in our discourse among, especially young saints as well, and how would you encourage them to kind of get to that point?
Yeah, no, it's a struggle. I think we're humans, right? We have flesh. I think once you're saved, it's very easy not easy, but I guess the easier part is receiving, like, okay, cool, I have salvation. But the harder part is laying your life down, picking up your cross and doing what God tells you to do, and that obedience piece. And so I think that's where the struggle can come in, because it's like you have to deny yourself, and denying yourself is not cute. It's not easy. It can be painful. It can lead to like loss and stuff. And so I think that's where people struggle, right? Even I've definitely struggled with that in different seasons of my life. But at the same time, it's like the beauty is on the other side of obedience. Like the beauty is on the other side of living for God. And I think there's no regrets that come with choosing God and saying yes to his calling. It may feel, hard, it may feel difficult, but what I've seen in my own life is that my life is exceedingly abundantly, like more than I could think that it could be, because I said yes to Jesus, and because I've said yes to impacting other people and not living for myself. And I think there is happiness. I think you are happier when you live for something beyond yourself, when you serve people beyond yourself. And when you truly just, you want to follow the will of God for your life. And again, it looks different for different people, and there's ebbs and flows of it. But I think ultimately we just have to kind of renew our mind. That's what the Bible talks about, renewing your mind and being transformed. And so it's a daily thing. It's a daily decision to say yes. I'm not perfect, but I can 100% say that it is worth it. It is worth following Jesus and just, being submitted to his will for you, for sure.
And it's contrary to what the world says as well, because the world says, do you fulfill yourself, but it's actually having that servant-hearted attitude toward things that we actually live fulfilling lives. There's this one time I was pondering to myself that the people we remember, Christian or not, are not those who are about themselves, but are others, Mandela comes to mind, but not Hugh Hefner, for no disrespect, but because Hugh Hefner was all about himself. In fact, that's what we remember. But we remember, somebody who kind of put his agenda to one side and decided to do something of benefit to others at their own expense. Yeah. And I feel that's actually the most fulfilling life, to offer yourself as a blessing and also to actually see the fruits of that. Oh, wow. Yeah. I think it's beautiful to someone say, oh, yeah, that song blessed me, or, what you said to me, man, I was in low, and that really encouraged me. That environment actually gives you more joy than actually you just seeking your own agenda. But it seems like the world is giving this lie, and even more so in this day and age. Do you be yourself and all that? And it's like, that's toxic. It's actually putting yourself to one side that you actually live the fulfilling life, isn't it?
Yeah, no, 100%. And you're right. Like we're told about it's me, live your life, live your truth, and all of that stuff. And so, it's bombarded every watch. But rightly, as you're saying, like you do remember those people who were more sacrificial, and actually often the people that gave a lot for themselves aren't even known. there's so many people that have lived and they gave, like grandmas who prayed for their, grandkids and the people who they're nameless almost, but they have lived a life that is worthy and lived a life that is so sacrificial. And so even Paul, like he was in prison for half his life. So, but he was so impactful, right? And so it's like, you don't even have to be known. You don't have to have the big lights and the big platforms and the big names. But as long as you know in your heart that you are being obedient and you are blessing other people, you're loving people well, it's a life well lived, and it's a life that Jesus lived. And so we're called to emulate that. And I pray that we do.
I guess the bottom line is we all have to decide ourselves.
Yeah.
Is what Jesus says how we should live the best way and not our way. And it's a constant thinking, okay, Lord, this is how I feel, but I'm going to submit because I believe that your way is best. Yeah. And I guess a lot of people arrive to that final conclusion, having tried doing things their own way. They're like, you know what? I'm tired of me right now. I need a whole different kind of agenda, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cool. So maybe tell us the first song that you ever released, because obviously you say you're a bit shy, and God kind of had to work his way in your heart to kind of reveal what his will was for you. So tell us that very first moment you decided, okay, I got this song and I'm going to drop it online, and tell us all about that. Because obviously the very first one must have been, a big deal. I'm sure you remember that experience. Maybe you could share that with us.
Yeah. So actually Live For You was my first song. So
okay.
Which is interesting that it's like the most streamed one. But yeah, I think for me, it was, when was it? 2019, I think. I wanted to start basically a platform that allowed other musicians and singers and Christians to have a platform to show their music. And so I started organizing my events under my brand, I Radiate. And so when I thought I was going to do that, I was like, oh, okay, maybe I need to release a song then, because I should, let me have a song. And so that's when the process of me kind of finalizing the song and planning the event, which is like a live worship event, basically, where I kind of recorded Live For You live.
So that's where the video comes from then?
Yeah. That came from my event. And so, it was a bit manic because I didn't have much experience with organizing my own events. I've only volunteered. And so, I was just organizing. I was finishing the song. I had to contact a producer. And I was just figuring everything out kind of live, because I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know you have to do all of these things to release a song. Wow. And especially because I was doing it live, it made it so much harder. Because there was things to think about, like videography and whatever. But it was a bit of a hectic process, but I had a good producer and I had a band around me, and I just believed in the vision God had given me. I believed in the song that he'd given me. And so I recorded Live For You. The live audience that we had, they loved it. And I was like, wow, okay, maybe there's something here. I just think it was like almost walking in obedience and just seeing that God came through basically, and like I wasn't going crazy. And so it was a good process. And then I released it online maybe a year after or so. And it was scary. Oh my gosh, it was so scary releasing my own song. It's like, wow, what would the world say, sort of thing. But I did it, right? I did it, and I had a good community again to encourage me and to push me. It was a fun process, and I think I've learned a lot since then, for sure. I've released another song since then.
And I hear a credit to another success is having a team behind you. Would you say that you have a little team, a little circle that kind of help you, even not in a professional capacity, but someone to encourage you, keep you accountable, and etc.? Maybe tell us about that.
Yeah. So I think I've had different teams, to be fair, since then, but
different teams. Look at you.
No.
Team 1, team 2, team 3, yeah?
But no, I mean, I think I just had to use kind of who was around me. Like even my close friends who aren't musical, they would be kind of rocks in terms of encouraging me to like, you can do this, or like just helping to volunteer at the events and just being around me. My parents, again, my family. I think just finding, good musicians to help and, people to produce it. I think it's been a process of just trial and error and just seeing who's available, really. So since then I've worked with different teams. I had live recording a few years back too for an EP I'm releasing soon. And that was a different team. And I think, I'm just grateful for just the experiences I've had to continue to have people around me to support me. And just knowing that people do believe in you, right? And you have to believe in yourself, but there are people out there who will believe in you and will actually lay down their time and their talents to help and support you. So I'm really grateful.
And I'd add to that, it's also a gift of providence, the fact that you have a goal and God provides you people along the way to kind of help you. It kind of shows that you're on the right track when you have people like, I think I can help you with this and that. You're like, oh, wow, God, okay, so this is this, because it kind of is more smooth sailing and kind of a confirmation that perhaps you're kind of on the right, direction as far as where the Lord is leading you. So that's wonderful, man. And so tell us about your new EP coming up. You kind of kept that quiet till now.
So I think 2 years ago I had a live EP recording. Probably the biggest production I've had. There'll be music videos and everything. And so that, following my first 2 songs, I think I knew that I wanted to release a project, and God had given me different songs since the first song I wrote. And so so we recorded it, had a huge band, huge kind of mini choir behind us. And, so it's in the works now. It's in the studio. We're just finishing some things, but it's called Anchor. And, it's very dear to me. It's almost like my heart in a project, and my heart for God, and just knowing his faithfulness and kind of just making that into 4 songs. And so, it will be out hopefully next year by God's grace. Some new sounds from me, kind of different, a little bit different to my first 2 singles, but I've been able to experiment a bit more. And obviously, I've grown. It's been a few years now, so I've grown. And so, so I'm very excited for people to hear it. It will hopefully bless people, because I know there's people who went to the live recording 2 years ago, and every time I see them, they're like, when is it coming out? When is it coming out? And they still remember parts of it, and I'm shocked. It shocks me every single time. So I'm very excited.
So there's a new style. Would I also say there seems to be a running theme? Because you just said, I believe you said the EP name is called Anchor. So we just said it's a running theme toward the project. Something maybe along the line of God being faithful to you. Maybe tell us a little bit more.
No, that's accurate. Yeah, there's a running theme. I'm trying to think of the songs. Yeah, there's a running theme of kind of, you'll see throughout the songs, it is almost like a journey of God's faithfulness through different songs. And the fact that he's been an anchor and he's kept me, and hopefully it blesses other people to remind them that he's also kept you through the highs, the lows, and ultimately, like, he deserves our praise and he is faithful and he's an anchor for our souls. So.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me of Hebrews, right? God is faithful. He is our anchor for the soul, right? It kind of makes me think of a hymn. Don't worry, I won't sing it. I'm not a singer. So it's all good. It's all good. Listen, Christmas is coming up. So I need to ask, are you a Christmassy kind of person, or are you are you the Grinch where it's like, this is for kids now, or where you are you giddy about it now? Because I'm even seeing like Christmas decorations. I'm like, come on, man, like what's going on? Like, but I mean, for the kids, it's great. I mean, for my son, I'm sure it'll be awesome. But like, where you are you a big kid, or you like? I mean, where you at with that then?
Yeah. I love Christmas. Oh my gosh, I'm excited.
Oh no!
I'm one of those people. I am excited. No. Yes. I mean, I'm not the type to put up the Christmas decorations in October.
Oh, are you counting down now? You got the calendar. You have 500 days till Christmas. I'm like, yo, like.
No, I'm not that bad. When I was younger, but I love it. And I think I love it, especially because in my church we have a really big carol production, which I'm part of. And it just makes it just come alive. And you really just remember, like, wow, all of the songs and the hymns, and just, it's such a beautiful time, honestly. So, I love it.
And it's important to know the reason for the season. I think you kind of get caught up in that. I think it's important. Christ came to save us from our sins. Just like the angel told Mary, like he came to be the savior. And I think if we lose that, we lose everything. Yeah. So, I mean, I would ask what we should expect for the future. But you told us you got an EP coming up. What about things to do with the event side? Is that something that you're going to revive back again?
So at the moment, I've actually pivoted a bit. So I'm still ministering and I still do like attend other people's events, but right now I'm running kind of almost like relationship based events for Christians and like games nights and stuff. So I've really pivoting right now. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, to be fair. But one day maybe I will go back to music events and run that again. But yeah, for now I feel like God is calling me to a completely different space. Yeah.
Why relationships?
I think I just learned a lot from my church that I think there's just a lot of single people and there's a lot of struggles with singleness. And I think just observing the dating scene and stuff, I just feel like it's important to be the change you want to see. And so I thought, okay, cool. I have experience with running events and I know a lot of single people. And so let me just try and, run events and connect people and empower single people, especially millennials. And help them to hopefully meet people and flourish in their relationships. And I think relationships are so important, right? So it's God's idea. And so I think if I can do it and do it right and do it well, I think it will bless a lot of people. And I've already seen fruits of that with the people I know. So, yeah.
Okay, Abigail. Gonna put you on the spot here. Sorry, go put you on the spot. Advice to guys, Christian guys. Advice to Christian guys, number one. And then the second advice to the ladies. Go.
What, single Christian guys?
And single Christian women, yeah.
Okay, so my advice to single Christian guys, from just everything I've observed, is that being intentional is such a good thing. I think, the more intentional a man can be, for a woman at least, the better it would be, the better relationships could be. And just working on themselves. I think a lot of women talk about, oh yeah, there's all these conferences for us women, but the men don't have that many conferences. So I think if a man could definitely work on himself and be the best man, godly man that he could be, I think it will just make everything so much better. And so I would say the same thing for women. Like if a woman can work on herself and not just be obsessed with marriage, but actually work on herself, read the books, go to the conferences and just make sure she's, investing in her own mental, spiritual, physical health and all of that. I think it will just be better for the relationship. And something that really sticks with me is healthy people make healthy relationships. And I think if we can get to that spiritual health, physical health, emotional health, then there'll be so much better relationships and marriages in this world. And so I recommend that.
Okay, so that's beautiful. But for guys, help us here, yeah? Because, us guys, we really need things to be spelled out, yeah? Okay. So a guy might say, okay, you want us to be intentional, but how can we be intentional without being creepy? Right? Because I can't just go up to a woman and say, you're the woman of my life. Okay. Let me take, you know what I mean? Okay. So a lot of people, they don't know what that means. And so they think, okay, I'm never going to be pretty creepy. I'm just going to walk away and just walk away and just let it go. This is a battle that's too much. Okay. So maybe for the guys, because, we can be a bit of a numbskull sometimes. What do you mean by intentional? Because does intentional mean, hey, yo, because a lot of people are just too forward and it's slow. I like the confidence, but slow your roll. So maybe help us with that.
I think so. Intentional can look different for different people. I think, for example, if they, they're feeling someone that in their space, in their circle, in their church, I think it's really important to just build acquaintances, kind of be in their circle. Don't stalk them, but if you like that girl, don't just be shy. Because I think a lot of girls, we can kind of tell if someone's interested or whatever. But if they're, they're not saying anything, they're not, asking to meet up, they're not, complimenting us, and it could be a lot more confusing. But if they're kind of forward and it's this is my intention, I would love to get to know you. I'd love to take you out on a date. And don't just say hang out, say date, use the word date. I think many, many women would appreciate that from a man, to just make his intentions known and make it clear and just act in a way that also aligns with his words. So if he's saying, I'm interested in you, then, message every day, message every other day. Don't be messaging once a month because it can be confusing, right? And so I think practical things like that, a woman definitely would appreciate from a man, from a Christian man. And even having accountability too. I guess not just isolating yourself within your relationship would really be beneficial to the woman and her feeling safe, and as well as the success of the relationship too.
Mm. And guys, don't fear rejection. Take it from me. As you're listening, do not fear rejection. In fact, a woman would appreciate that you ask.
Yes.
If a woman says, I appreciate, but I'm not interested, trust me, believe me, they do appreciate. Because that's what women like. You've got to be brave. You've got to be brave. Guys, you got to go for it. You got to go for
it. Good. Tell them.
You gotta. Well, the worst thing that could happen is a woman say no. Just move on to the next one. Trust me. That's as painful as that might be, guys. You just have to do it. And the right one will say yes, and you live happily ever after. Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, Adiga, wow, I've really enjoyed this interview. I look forward to your EP. If you have any events that we at Life Music can help you pitch to our audience, please let us know. And so finally, a question that I normally ask my guests that I would ask you is, what is it that you love about serving the Lord Jesus?
I love the fact that I can, as we said, respond to the sacrifice that was first given to us. I love the fact that, Jesus, he died for me. He saved my soul. He took me from the ghetto. And so it really fills me with joy to know that I can give. Obviously, you can't repay, for the things that Jesus did, but you can live a life that is pleasing to him. And I think in simple terms, I just love the fact that I'm able to show his love to other people through my actions when I serve.
Abigail, thank you so much. I'm so glad I finally got a chance to speak to you. You're such an amazing worship leader. I think, there's so many people like yourself who create songs that really help us take us to the presence of God. We really appreciate your service. I look forward to your EP. God bless you and keep doing the great work.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This has been really fun.
My pleasure.